Good morning, everyone. Morning. Welcome everyone to the CESA Young Professionals Leadership and Management webinar. My name is Itumeleng Sethlabane, and I'll be your facilitator for today's event. Everyone can see my slide, correct? Just to double check.
Yes, we can.
Thank you. So yeah, as I've mentioned, I'm Itumeleng Sethlabane. I'll be your facilitator for today's webinar. And I'm currently a civil engineer at Zutari. And outside of my workspace, I also serve as the CESA YP Young Professionals in Gauteng North as the events coordinator. So just to welcome everyone, all the YPFs and all the senior engineers that are within the webinar. So today's agenda, today we will be, sorry. So today, to celebrate the Youth Month, in celebration of Youth Month, this webinar will be focused on that. And we'll start off by honoring the legend that is the youth, as we commemorate what happened in the past. And yeah, looking forward to the future. And as the future says, we as the youth are the future. So this event will also look into empowering the next generation of engineers as we become leaders in our own field. So yes, we'll focus on leadership growth and impact that we will bring forth to the world as the future. And why we are here? We are here as young professionals to help each other and also get assistance from our seniors who will equip us with leadership guidelines and also management insights that will force us to grow and flourish in our roles. And also, this webinar also serves as a space whereby it cultivates the excellence that we strive for as engineers, innovation, and ethical leadership, which is very important in what we do. And another point is we're here also to network amongst ourselves and also reach out to the professionals, the seniors more especially, that are here within the space to provide guidance and advice when we need it. And also, most importantly, to answer all the questions that we need. Then the last one is for us to get inspiration for what we need to do and what we have to take action for, and also take accountability as the youth in shaping the South Africa that we want for our future. Then most importantly, leadership starts with us as the youth. As such, we must always strive for a culture that flows from the top. And we are the, sorry for that. Let me just do this. Yeah, we should always strive for a culture that flows from the top, and we are the future top. So what this basically means is that a culture that flows from the top, it's a culture whereby it cultivates its young ones. So if seniors are at the top, they should be cultivating and sprinkling down that leadership down to the bottom, which is us, the youth. And as such, in the future as well, we'll be the ones at the top and also carrying forth the same culture. And within this culture, we must strive for excellence and lead. And when we lead, we don't just lead, we lead with integrity as well. And we should be bold. As young people, I think a lot of people can relate that sometimes, especially in spaces where you're supposed to talk or where you're given the platform, sometimes you kind of feel scared and we're not sure if what we're doing is right or not. But I urge everyone who's a YPF to say, be bold, own your space and be present. And even when you're not sure, ask while you're being bold. Being bold does not mean you know it all. It means that you're being brave enough to face whatever obstacle or challenge or adventure that is ahead of you. And most importantly, as engineers, you have to be curious. I think all of us were there at one point where you asked whys to the physics teacher or the maths teacher. So now you have to live out that why and be curious. And be collaborators. Engineering is not something that you can do by yourself. Engineering is a team effort. Even when you are studying to become an engineer, you saw there that it is a team effort. So you must do it as such within your teams. And lastly, leadership is not just a title. It's not something you can write on your office door and say, no, I'm a leader. It's something that you have to install in your mindset. So even if you don't have a office by yourself, you're still a leader, because within your team, you work effectively as a leader. And someone said to me once that leadership is not just a leader who's in front, but you yourself are a leader when you are allowing someone to lead you, giving them the platform, the space, and the resources to lead you. So in that effect, you become a leader as well because you're learning from them. And once when you take that role, you'll do as such as a leader more effectively. So that's why we're here today. So just to go into the program for today, I hope everyone got that. Just to go into today's program, as I've mentioned, my name is Itumeleng Sethlabane, and I work at Zutari. And so now I was just setting the scene for today's event, which will be focused on us as the future generation of our country and the world, and how we can become better leaders and managers in the roles that we occupy or are planning to occupy. And our main speaker will also speak, which is Sechaba. And afterwards, after Sechaba has spoken, we'll have a Q&A session. And within that Q&A session, I hope everyone is kind of aware in the chats. We have a Q&A box. Please pop your questions there. And also in the chats, that's where you can interact and post your comments to say good, happy, fine, and interact as much as you can since you don't have mics on. And lastly, we'll just have a conversation with the attendees. So I'm assuming that's when we're going to use the chat to see what's happening, how people are interacting. And lastly, to close off the event, we'll have a closing. I'll do the final remarks and we'll end off the event. So now going into the YPF, just to tell you a bit about the YPF, the CESA YPF. So the CESA YPF is a branch of CESA. CESA is our main umbrella, if I can put it like that. So we are the YPF, so we are the Young Professionals Forum, and our objective of the Young Professional Forum is to bring awareness within the engineering and build environment about careers and also the consulting engineering space, and also about CESA as a whole, what it does, yes. And most importantly, one of the main objectives of CESA is to retain the talent and the brains that we have as a country. So even as CESA YPFs, we feel that as young professionals, our country depends on us, its youth, to cultivate the future that it needs. As such, the engineers that it has educated throughout varsity from high school and all that, it should keep it and make sure that it is the one that builds its future. Building capacity and knowledge amongst the members. So yes, we're building capacity amongst ourselves so that whatever projects that come and knowledge that we need to share in the future, we have enough capacity as a country to action them and carry them through. Then the second last one is we share knowledge amongst each other and also network. And this platform, just as this webinar that we're having today, it provides a platform for engineers to support each other throughout the whole registration process and how we get there as well. So here, as you can see with the pictures, so this is us setting the tone for leadership. So here on my I think your guys is right, my left. We have the Imbizo conference that we had last year. It was held here in Sandton. So this is the CESA YPF committee. So this is us there at the corner. Then our chairperson Uze sits there in the middle. Then on my right, your left, I'm assuming, there it was the FEDEC Africa conference. Uze went there as one of our YPFs to represent us, and everyone was there as part of the FEDEC Africa conference, along with our CEO and the president as well, as you can see in the picture. Then other things that we do, as much as we push for excellence, we also push for enjoyment, because you need a pause once in a while to recap and have fun as engineers together. So here are some of the events that we do. There's beach volleyball, there's bowling, and we also do some charity work as well with organizations. And we also have in competitions amongst ourselves, quiz nights, and there it's an outreach whereby we're cleaning the beach. Then other stuff that we also strive for, we strive for greatness. And within this greatness, we're creating opportunities for engineers to come and engage. And this can be a whole lot of events. So for example, here it was a site visit. So for in the event whereby, let's say you're an engineer, you're working at a certain company, and within that company, you've never had the opportunity to go to site or see what's happening on site or even get exposure to certain projects. Here we provide you with that platform to get exposed to those projects and be on site as well, if that is available. And here, this was a career fair, and within this career fair, we collaborated with SMEC. So sometimes we collaborate with other companies, and we're there at the career fair to sort of showcase students what civil engineering is about, like all the engineering disciplines, what they are about, and how they can be a part of CESA and learn more about the engineering space in the work life. Then here it was an event for financial literacy. So as much as we're engineers, we need to be financially savvy. So these events also help with that, and also help with that. There are presentations as well where us as YPFs, we present our projects that we worked on, and we learn from each other, we bounce off ideas. And with this image, it was a mentoring session, yes, speed mentorship at UJ. And there we ourselves as the YPFs go back and mentor the students that are there, that are looking forward one day to becoming engineers, and give them guidance and advice, and also how to apply for jobs, when to apply for jobs and stuff like that. Then here, this is a webinar that we have. I think this one was the gender mainstreaming webinar, where we collaborated as well with CESA, but on the gender mainstreaming webinar, and we sort of addressed some of the gender and equity, I think, yeah, equity issues that are there within the space, and we tackled them, and we had an interactive session. So yeah, come and be a part of the excellence. Then please join our social media platforms. There they are. And yeah, be a part of this great group that is the future engineers, the YPs. Thank you. Then now I will introduce firstly our key speaker. So our keynote speaker for today is Sechaba. Sechaba is a board member of CESA and a managing director of ISAO Consulting. He chairs the CESA Education and Training Committee and holds a role at the Walter Sisulu University, SANPEX, and Infrastructure South Africa. An EXA registered professional engineer, Sechaba has a bachelor's and a master's degree in civil engineering from the University of Witwatersrand. He is passionate about future-proof engineering, climate resilience infrastructure, and labor-intensive construction for developing countries. Thank you, and I'll hand over to Sechaba.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Itumeleng. Let me just see if my video will come up here so the attendees can see me as well. And a good morning while all of that happens. If I can just get a confirmation from anyone.
Yes,
and now both hear me and see me.
Yes, perfect.
All right, fantastic. So thank you very much for that introduction. That was very nice. I call myself an honorary YP, as Godfrey will know, and it's always very strange now coming back to a YP talk, to come talk as not a YP. I was a YP for pretty much my entire qualifying career, from when I graduated until when they kicked me out. I was a YP, and in fact, even when they kicked me out, I still stayed in your group. So even as Godfrey is sending you messages now in the WhatsApp group, I'm still there all these years later. So that's how much I identify with being a member of the YPF. But be that as it may, onto what we're here to talk about today. I've been asked to come and speak to you a little bit about leadership and management, which is a very broad topic. I trust I'll be able to do it justice. But I prepared a couple of talking points, not a presentation per se, that I'm hoping will structure our discussion. Once we have gone through a couple of my talking points, I'm looking forward to us having an opportunity to just discuss what I'm talking about. Hopefully, some pivotal moments in my career that I would like to share. Maybe some of you will want to hear those. And Itumeleng will guide me through this discussion so that it doesn't become too monotonous. I know I can go on. So as has already been introduced, my name is Sechaba Kou. Itumeleng did a very gracious job of talking through what my credentials are, so I won't bore you with what my background is, except to say that I am a board member at CESA, and I am the chairperson of the education and training portfolio. So that is my involvement at CESA. And then every other day when I'm not at CESA, I work at ISAO Consulting. How I'm hoping we'll run through today, as it relates to leadership and management, I'm just going to share some nuggets that I picked up over time in my own leadership and about leadership and good management. I will try, without making it a history session, to give a very short look back into my own leadership journey and critical points along that leadership journey where I believe the decision I took was critical. Maybe I wouldn't be where I am had I not. And then I get asked often, and in fact, even in the preparation for this, to also just speak about my decision to just venture into entrepreneurship. And maybe just to provide some background, ISAO Consulting is a small consulting engineering business that I run and own. In the attendees here, we will probably have a combination of people that are employed in large consulting companies who wonder what their long-term plan is, or maybe might wonder, at what point does someone decide to leave a great job like this in Sandton or in Pretoria East and go and start his own small company and all of the problems that come with that. Perhaps if we have time, we'll get a chance to just speak about that. But really, the nuggets we speak about, I speak about these nuggets that I've picked about. What are these nuggets? So for me, I try to summarize them, around these 7 points, and very quickly they revolve around what I have termed stay ready. I hear young people all the time say, if you stay ready, then you never have to get ready when the opportunity strikes. And there's nothing more true than that. The second one being follow well before you lead well. The third one, be teachable. And I think that's pretty straightforward. The fourth one, try and get yourself to be known as the let me try person, but that person that always raises their hand. Fifth one being don't hesitate, and I put there in brackets for the right opportunity. Obviously, you must hesitate if there's a lot of risk. Get comfortable with long and boring. A lot of people that I speak to say, "What's that one thing you did? That one thing you did quickly." I don't think there's any one thing to. It's a series of decisions that you make and you see through a lot of patience and a lot of waiting. And despite what people might say, these careers are very monotonous and very boring. I don't want to discourage you from being in the consulting engineering or in the engineering discipline. But I'll talk to you a little bit about how long and boring building long-term success is. And then the final one, just in your life and in your business, you must build resilience. And I'm hoping to talk to you around just these 7 points. It gave me some time here, so I must just keep watching how long I have. So staying ready really speaks to a leadership principle called decision making. I mean, I call it staying ready, but you need to know when the decision to act is, and you need to be ready before the time of making that decision. Once the opportunity has presented itself to you, and it hardly ever comes as a result of succession planning or your boss telling you, I'm getting you ready for XYZ. You know, in most instances, it's crisis moments where somebody resigns in the Kou office. You look like a smart guy. Do you want to go there? Now, this might have never been a plan in your own development planning, but there's your opportunity. And if you ever wanted an opportunity to prove yourself, it's about staying ready when that opportunity comes about, because you won't have a month to think about it in most instances. And this is the kind of staying ready that I'm talking about. I put there that you need to get comfortable with switching up your career plan when the prospecting opportunity rears its head. Prospecting is taking an unconventional opportunity to eventually get to where you need to get to. It will never be a straight path going forward. So that's what staying ready is speaking about. I wrote there that you need to try and follow well to lead well. And the leadership principle there is perhaps what is known as empathy. Bad followers make very bad leaders. Back when you are still following someone or you're a part of a team, you need to learn to be a star team member. And this is being a star team member to your leader or your boss, but also a star team members laterally across your level of employ. So be a great person to be in a team with, be a great person to work with, have a solutionist mindset, even among your colleagues, such that when you get given an opportunity or when you get handpicked, even they know this guy brings it. This goes with having a service mindset. And I put in here that, you know, getting involved in anything, I mentioned fraternity events here, but it's really just staying involved in the company. We all know those people that will never go to the company braai, that will never come to anything that isn't directly related to their job. If we're organizing a Mandela Day event, it's like, hey guys, yeah, I have a deadline, but all the time this person's got a deadline. Those kind of things rub off on the kind of person you are. And I believe they do you more a disservice than a service. So having a service mindset and also getting involved in both fraternity events, company events, university events, and all of the communities that you are in. I always set myself the goal of getting involved in one role. And you don't always need to be the lead of everything. So don't be chairperson of everything, community development, you're the chairperson, but get involved in at least one thing in a measured role. I found that goes a long way. And when you do get the opportunity to lead, remember what your leaders didn't do so well back when you followed, and try and improve that in your leadership turn. And that is where the real empathy comes about. This is related to it. You must be teachable. I've found that not allowing your ego to run away with you is a good grounding measure. So remaining with a teachable spirit and accepting that there's a lot that one doesn't know will take you a long way. But not only on how people view you. I believe one must possess a certain hunger for learning at all times. It's how growth manifests itself, I've come to find. So accepting that there's always somebody that's smarter, that's more experienced to you, that's more advanced and more successful than you at every level. At the level that I'm at, even just before I retire, there'll always be somebody from whom I can learn, and having an opportunity to learn from those people at every step of your journey is a chance for you to seize that opportunity and take it. So I believe very strongly in being the teachable type. I spoke about raising your hand every chance you get earlier. Develop a reputation for being that one person who will at least try. Yeah, you won't be able to solve every problem, but become known. I should say become known as the proactive candidate, not become known. Be that one person that says, "What, you look like you're struggling with that thing, my boss. Let me take care of that. I'm sure you've got more important things to do." This is how you teach people in authority positions around you to trust you with challenges as they come about. And always being willing to raise your hand to solve the problem, no matter how small it is. In fact, the smaller the better. If you're sitting there and you see people doing what looks like too menial a task for them to be doing, so look, why don't you let me take care of that? You go and do that, and watch how the opportunities are going to pile up upon your desk. One could also look at it and say, yeah, but then you're inviting people to just inundate me with more tasks than I need to be doing. Why would I do that? But I've found that attitude for being the problem solver is exactly how you get given that one opportunity that at the first instance will put you in way in beyond your head. But if you thrive in that one, trust me, you're not coming back. And leadership, I've found that leadership notices and respects those people that are willing to try, even to try and to fail. I just want to take a second here and see that I'm not missing any prompts. I know we're going to have an opportunity to discuss questions at a later stage. Okay, I think we're still good. Being the let me try person can manifest itself in a number of ways. When I was a young YP, I got given what I thought was a fantastic opportunity to become a resident engineer on a UNISA project. It was fantastic. It was, one of the largest projects we had undertaken as a company at the time, or at least as that division of the company. And while I was there learning so much, I had an opportunity to go and become a regional manager in the Free State of all places. Now I'm already in Joburg, working in Pretoria, living in Sandton, and life is good. Our business needed a regional manager in Old Bloemfontein to take care of both the Free State and the Northern Cape. Nobody wanted to do this job. They'd interviewed and interviewed, and eventually I said, hey, this position's been vacant for close to a year now. I asked my boss if he'd let me try, and very hesitantly, and I'm sure he went up against a lot of resistance all the way up the management journey to let everybody, to convince everybody to give me a shot at this opportunity. Long story short, I raised my hand, I got an opportunity, relocated my whole life, and had to learn what it takes to get the job done. But I never came back to do the work that we were doing in the office after that. After that, I was a manager, and it was on. Luckily, we were successful in reestablishing that office and turning it around from a loss-making business to a very successful business. a couple of years of grinding teeth there, putting in very measured interventions. Bob's your uncle. We came back as glory showing, and I attribute all of this to just being willing to raise your hand at the right time. Going on, I spoke about never hesitating. Or once you've established that this is the opportunity for you, and perhaps this is related to the story I've just shared. Obviously, you must have a risk assessment mindset. Don't just jump into big decisions all willy-nilly. But once you've determined that this opportunity is the one for you, you don't waste time. You, as the proverbial saying goes, you strike while the iron's hot. And I always hear people saying, if you're not too sure, just put one foot in. I completely disagree with that kind of narrative. I think once you've established that this is the opportunity for me, or this is what I want to do, you absolutely need to jump in with both feet. You shouldn't be looking back, because you have done the risk evaluation. You have looked at all of the opportunities that were available for you, and you have decided that this is what I'm doing. Nothing is more disheartening, in my opinion, than somebody I can tell is not sure is at the right place. So once you've decided that, be it the Free State, be it Katu, be it on an oil rig, once you've decided that's where you're going to be, you show up and you bring 100% every single day. And that's what I mean by jumping in with both feet for the right opportunity. Going forward, I spoke about long and boring, and my team at the office always hate when I tell them about how long and boring running business is, or how long and boring it is setting a strategy and seeing it through. But unfortunately, that is the reality. The real success is a long and a boring process. People talk about what's the quick win here. While there are quick wins along the way, quick wins alone never really bring success. They'll bring a quick turnaround, but after that quick win, there's another long period of seeing that quick win through, and that also takes long and boring discipline, consistent work, and patience. I think all of you see that second bullet just about everywhere you read anything about leadership, that you need to practice discipline. I can't even tell you that I've mastered discipline at my age, but I know that discipline underpins all success for everybody who's ever had anything to say about having a successful career. Unfortunately, it's a character trait that one needs to cultivate pretty much their whole life. And this is discipline to stay the path that you need to stay, but also discipline to avoid the distracting tasks, the distracting practices, the distracting people even. And I think on this slide alone, probably sits more than half of the essence of real leadership. If you have the discipline and you're able to put in the work, even on the days when you don't want to wake up, those people that are at the forefront of their crafts or their skill sets, whether it's gym or martial arts or business, will always say it's being able to wake up on the day when you are the most tired, or when the body hurts, and go to gym or go to the office in this instance, and put in the work and go through the admin or run that design, work on the model, run through the calc sheets. It's being able to do that consistently and coming back and staying late nights, coming in on the weekends. It's really these kind of things that really make the difference. And then lastly, in line with this same discipline, consistency, is having the patience to wait for your harvest. And I put harvest here because it's a very personal thing for me. I said I work for ISAO Consulting, and ISAO is a South Sotho name that speaks to the future, but it's specifically the future harvest season. In other words, if you plant now, after the planting season is done and it's harvest time, in South Sotho, that is ISAO. So that name was very strategically picked to remind myself as I run through business that we have a harvest season that is in the future that we are working towards. And while we might not see it now, that must always be at the back of our minds. So that fourth bullet just speaks to having the patience to wait for that harvest. And then very quickly, to allow us to speak, I see we still have about 15 minutes to go. Building resilience is a very broad thing. And I put in there that you must just obviously stash any and everything away that you can for a rainy day, for drought season, but also build yourself up as an individual to be able to withhold calamity should it come. What happens if the company that you work for has to shed half of the jobs of the people that are employed there? Will you be on the retained half, or would you be on the half that is slashed? You obviously don't need to answer that, but how you think about contributing to your business should give you comfort that you would be retained. And even in there means you have invested in your career. And this is the resilience that we're talking about. In business, obviously, this means setting up reserves and ensuring that you have the longevity and the means to survive through recessions. In our industry, we've gone through a number of financial recessions. We've gone through COVID, and you surely saw how that affected us. So I always believe that one must anticipate tough times. They will always come. When I was a younger engineer, I didn't always appreciate this concept. I thought, but that's okay. I'm a relatively smart person. I should be able to make it. But these tough times cut across, and they grind thin, especially if you end up in business. And that's unfortunately a lesson I had to learn the hard way. And then finally, I maybe want to anticipate that first question around how I found myself in entrepreneurship, having started out as a technocrat, as I put in the opening slide, and what that decision making entailed. I think it's always a very personal answer, sort of question to answer, because it's very dependent on what kind of person you are. I don't believe that everybody is an entrepreneur, and if entrepreneurship is not for you, then that's great. There are many successful technocrats that remain technocrats and specialists that build amazing careers, and in fact, our industry wouldn't be where it was if we didn't attain those kind of people. We are fortunately in an engineering or in a discipline or in a sector that allows for you to either push the passion that brought you where you are, whether this is your technocrat personality, and you can operate within businesses or structures that have been set up for you to thrive without you having to worry about billable hours, etc., etc. For me, it was a very personal journey where I've always really believed that I'm an entrepreneur. I believe that I'm an entrepreneur first and an engineer second. It doesn't mean I'm any less good an engineer. I believe I'm a fantastic engineer, if I may say so myself. But it really was a personal journey where I've always wanted to go into entrepreneurship. And every opportunity that I've had, I have taken it. I went into entrepreneurship very early along my career. In fact, I hadn't been out of university 5 years. I had already resigned and started my own company. I came back into corporate after that company. We did okay, and we were approached and bought out by one of the large consulting engineering companies that I've worked for. And jiggy, I found myself back in corporate again after that buy over. And I was very happy about that decision because it recognized that we were able to build a successful business, one that might be attractive to larger corporate consulting engineering companies to want to take up our structure and our employees and the projects that we had amassed. That only gave me the confidence that actually you're probably able to build something even bigger if you could do that within, I think it was 3-4 years at the time. But be that as it may, I stayed in corporate and I think I did very well there too. And when the opportunity presented itself years later, I took the plunge yet again and went on to start ISAO Consulting. And I'm very happy I took that decision. I believe it was the right decision to take. And we are going to grow it as long as we can. Now, in the business, I obviously employ a lot of engineers and a lot of technologists and technicians. To the extent that the business will allow it, I still try and exercise my technocrat side, although I must admit I don't have a lot of opportunities for that. Some of my engineering partners in the business always call me now to say, I know you're not an engineer anymore. You're now a project manager or an administrator or whatever. They say this jokingly, but this is the kind of flack that I get for turning away from engineering and going into business. I think it's for those people that feel strongly about it, and I was one of those people. All right, so I think this is about as much as I had arranged to run through Itumeleng. I am happy to pause here. I think I saved you about 10 minutes, and I'm happy to go into the question and answer session or anything that you have arranged after this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sechaba. Thank you so much for that wonderful presentation. I think, yeah, there was a lot, but I think we got most of the nuggets that you wanted to share with us. So now we'll go into the Q&A session. So for the Q&A, I strongly suggest that everyone go into that Q&A box and pop up your questions in there. Then as you go into the Q&A, I'll read those questions out one by one. And yeah, then we'll give Sechaba a moment here to answer those questions. So at the moment, there are only 2 questions in the Q&A. I'll give everyone a chance to put their questions. But to start off, I'll do my questions first. Then as we're answering these questions, hopefully everyone else gets a chance to put their questions in the Q&A. So my first question to you, Sechaba, is what's that one personality trait that you believe propelled you into the leadership role that you are currently in? Leadership roles, actually, not just roles, plural. Roles that you're currently in, and also assisted you to always seek new opportunities.
Okay. Should I answer them as you go through them, or do you want to give me all 3 and let me see if I can navigate all of them?
Okay, I can give you all 3. Then the second one is, what is that one, with the role that you currently play as being a managing director of ISAO and also an investment committee member, having an engineering background and a passion for engineering, how do you use the engineering background that you have to navigate through the entrepreneurship roles that you have? Then my third question is, being part of the council of the Walter Sisulu University, looking at the engineering space as it is as a managing director, what do you feel is that what do you feel that the universities should implement in terms of innovation and technology to upcoming engineers to ensure that their position as the youth in the working space is will be felt and will be needed moving forward in terms of technology? Those are my questions. You're muted, Sechaba, you're muted. Unmute.
Okay, thank you. I got the first two, the character trait and engineering skills. The third one wasn't very clear. If you can just repeat that one for me, let me just make a note.
Okay, so the
About my
third one is,
role at Walter Sisulu.
yes. So wearing both hats in this situation, you're a managing director for a company, an engineering company, and also you're a council member at the university. Looking at the industry as it is now, what do you feel how can we best equip the students that are coming into the workspace to be of better value compared to the previous students that came in, myself, for example, in terms of technology, how can we better equip them, the students that are coming in to the workspace? Yeah. Hope it's clear.
Yeah, that's fantastic. All right, thank you very much for that. Let me try and navigate. So Itumeleng, the one personal character trait I think most helped me or helped propel me into leadership coming up was probably I would like to think it's my relatability. I'm not sure, and we should probably ask people that have worked with me, but I'd like to think a certain level of relatability I've been able to maintain throughout my engagements with my colleagues and my employers. I've played a very open cards set of relationship with them, so they've always known what you see is what you get with this guy. If he doesn't know, he doesn't know. He'll tell you, and he won't mince his words. And I think that, and other people will say, no, man, it's charisma or whatever. But personally, I think it's being able to be relatable. I'd attribute that one character trait more than anything. I don't think it's aptitude, and it's always a discussion about how well one did at university, and I didn't do that well at varsity. I was a relatively okay middle of the line student, but I think I had attitude and a personality that was distinguishable entering the workplace, and I think it has always served me well. So that's probably the one character trait I would say, the one personality trait that I'd say served me well in my career. The second one, and if I understand it correctly, it seeks to establish which of the engineering skills I've picked up do I still utilize now in my leadership positions, especially on boards and councils on which I sit. So here too, my colleagues in these positions tell me that engineers have a particular way of approaching, analyzing, and responding to a problem before addressing or providing a response. And I'm a strong believer that actually this is probably one of the most critical skills that engineers have outside of engineering. So obviously in engineering, but in engineering it's what's expected. But engineers are attractive in many different sectors. I mean, I'm sure you all know of your friends who graduated and never really worked in the engineering sector and went into banking, went into business, even went into law. And the appeal there is the manner in which we are trained to look at a problem, analyze it, and develop a solution based on the outcome of that analysis. Apparently, not everybody does this, but it comes of second nature to me, and I'm always reminded, even now, when I sit on a board and there's a particular challenge and a decision that we need to make, or a strategic direction that we need to decide on for the business going forward, that analytical thinking. So I would say it's that analytical thinking that has proven to be the most valuable, especially outside of engineering. And then the last one, this is a very interesting one. I'm very passionate about the students we are trying to train for the workplace going forward. So as you've already mentioned, I'm a council member at Walter Sisulu University, which is a very historically disadvantaged university in the Eastern Cape. It serves a very poor community and attracts a very disadvantaged demographic from the beginning. So the average student that enters Walter Sisulu is already very different to an average student that enters first year at WITS or at UCT, University of Pretoria. Most of these urban universities, we call it a historically disadvantaged university. So that disadvantage carries through in most instances. A lot of these students will go through their entire university career and even graduate, but you can still see that there's a gap, but a disadvantage. They didn't do enough computer studies before they came into university. So we are not, I believe, as universities across the board, not just Walter Sisulu, we are not training our students well enough to help them completely pivot out of disadvantaged backgrounds when they have any. So what I believe is that universities need to have a completely different curriculum. We need to have a completely different approach to how we train students for the workplace. And this relates to the kind of programs that we continue to offer. I think it is problematic that we still graduate as many students as we have, and these students go on to be unemployed. So this speaks to the unemployability of some of these programs that we provide. So there's some thinking that needs to go into whether we continue to train. I mean, I don't want to single out any particular careers here. You guys are okay in engineering. You will most likely always be employed. So these are high uptake careers in engineering, science, and medicine. But in some of these education faculties, we really need to start looking at whether we need to be spending as much money as we are spending to train students only for them to be unemployed, probably owing NEFSAS and living with this debt. So an entire curriculum change that is going to be pro-PC, that is going to embrace the future of things like AI, that is going to become less regurgitative learning, the type of tuition that we have now, where we are just taking knowledge and giving it to students and expecting them to remember it and write an exam and pass. There's something at a base level that doesn't work anymore for the future that we're in now. So I would say we would start needing to look at the curriculum at that sense and change that for a graduate of the future entering the workplace. Thank you.
Thank you, Sechaba. I think, yeah, those were nice answers, and I think very informative as well. And I think some bits they were a piece of advice as well to some of us as the YPs to look at our personality traits and have personality traits that build you as a person in your personal life and work life as well. So looking at the questions as well, please keep them coming. And I saw a few questions about how people are asking how can they collaborate with us as the YPF. I just want to highlight that one before we go into other questions. How you can collaborate with us, you can firstly reach out to us. And if you can't reach out to us social media is there. Then if there's any events that we've planned as the YPF I've mentioned, we will reach out to you, especially in universities, and universities more especially. We have speed mentorships and career guides that are there. So please, when you see us there, come to us. We'll tell you more about the CYPF and how we can contribute to your growth and development within your career as an engineer. So the first question I think that we have for you here is from David. So David says, thank you, Sechaba, for your great presentation. My question is, what gave you the strength to go resign and start your own business within 5 years? That's question number one. Were you registered as a PR Eng that time? Question number two, if not, how did you manage to run a consulting engineering company if you were not registered as a PR Eng? Oh, and there's another question here, sorry. How much roughly of savings or budget did you need to run your first company before getting clients to pay you to run your business? So I think this is the start of budget.
Okay, great stuff. Let me try and go. Let me start with David's question. The strength to resign and start my own business, PR Eng. I didn't, hey. I mean, the first business I started, I probably took way more risk than I would take now. But you know, therein lies the difference between being a very young professional. At the time, I had time to get it wrong and probably still bounce back. So when I first resigned to start my business, I hadn't registered professionally yet. But I had started the business with two mates of mine from varsity, one of which was significantly senior and he was registered. And another I had graduated with. And what we had done already probably from varsity is that I would take jobs in my final year to do drafting gigs under small companies to try and get myself the exposure. So I had already had a sense of how easy it is to make money if you align yourself with the right person. So already from varsity, I knew some mates of mine that had graduated a couple of years ahead of me that were already professionally registered, running businesses that people would come to, and it would be a small house project and it would be too small for him in the working environment then. But me as a final year student in varsity, I can design this thing really quickly, draw the thing, send it back to him, have him check it and issue it. And at varsity, it was a lot of money for me to make 5,000 Rand of a house plan. So that the courage already came from a recognition of what can be. Like, if I could do all of this already at just final year, sure, imagine when I have 5 years experience. By then I had done some amazing projects. Yes, I wasn't registered, so I just needed a plan for who will be the person in our business that will sign off the designs that we're doing. And it was important that this person knew my ability and my capability from all of this time. So we started the business as a group. And I suppose that is how I had the courage, because I knew that my risk was split 3 ways at the time. So I wasn't taking as much risk as much later when I started the business by myself. So David, if that answers your question, that's how I did it, the PR, and perhaps just having the strength to take on that much risk. On how much savings and budget did I need? Man, without going into numbers, not a lot. We started the business with very little savings. We converted an outbuilding at one of our partners' house, and we changed that into offices. We tried to keep our costs very low. We identified we identified a client that was willing to give us a long-term contract to sustain our operations. And we ran what we called, and I mean, that was our strategy until we finished, a lean, mean machine. And our approach into business at the time is that whatever the big businesses can do, we can do it much cheaper and much quicker, because we were young, we were hungry, we were agile, we were embracing software, which at the time was still coming in, and some of the older engineers were apprehensive to say, look, are these things going to work? And we trained ourselves, we immersed ourselves into 3D BIM software. At the time, it was very new, very cutting edge, very difficult to train, but be that as it may. So budget, not a lot, but what we didn't have in money, we compensated in additional time that we put into the business and an additional R&D. So yeah, that's my 2 questions responded for David.
Okay, thank you. Then we have more questions here. So we have Thando Blenkosi. What are some of the things I can do in my spare time to make myself more marketable as an engineer? Then a question from Tofazo. With the unemployment rate faced in South Africa, the engineering industry is dominated by private sectors, which are known for underpaying young professionals. How can one continue professional development when faced with the unemployment issue, taking this into consideration? I think those 2 questions, yeah. We can do those 2 questions, then we'll do the other 2 after. Oh, you're not audible. Sorry. Yes.
All right. So to Tandolongosi's question, remaining marketable as an engineer, I think obviously learn a skill that gives you a unique selling point as an engineer. I gave an example now about what we did when we started our business. We went and we dove headfirst into BIM, which was we believe our unique selling point at the time. Right now, there are a lot of exciting prospects that are taking place in the engineering sector, not knowing which side you're from. But even at CESA, we are engaging with our members to find out how our members are embracing artificial intelligence and how they're using it in their business. I believe young engineers have a fantastic opportunity of just becoming specialists in AI and starting to figure out where they can utilize it in the business. And I'm talking deep AI machine learning, not just this prompt thing that ChatGPT does. You give it a question and it gives you an answer. There are great areas of knowledge in writing code for AI, in learning, in the application of engineering solutions. And I think if one had the time to learn one such skill, and that's only one of them, that would be a great opportunity. So yeah, that's Tandolongkosi. Tsogofatso asks about unemployment rate. Sure, this is a tricky one, Tsogofatso. I think everybody who is active in the economy is trying any and all solutions to try and solve this unemployment rate. It's unfortunate that in the private sector, to try and stay competitive, in fact, it's unemployment rate and it's discounting that drives this. But in the private sector, in order to stay competitive, we are discounting and leaving ourselves thinner and thinner margins to run our businesses, such that the most vulnerable people in the business suffer. And unfortunately, the most vulnerable people in the business are young professionals. And this now manifests itself in the kind of opportunities that you get and the training that you would have otherwise gotten. I mean, when I was a young engineer, the company needed used to force us to go on training. It would go in your evaluation, and if you don't do a particular amount of development, it would count against you, and you wouldn't get as good a raise. And nowadays, we cancel training every chance we get. Our young professionals are eager to go and learn new stuff, but there are no training budgets. So this is unfortunate. Professional development, as I said, is critical. Unfortunately, if you're operating in a business that doesn't have a budget for that, it's very limiting to you as a young professional. I think one can do much but continue to try and lobby for the limited training budget that is there to be applied to them. I think there's a lot of opportunity for you to go outside of the company and try and find training opportunities that you can then bring back to your employer and suggest, if we teamed up with these people who are willing to give us this kind of training, is that something that you'd be willing to look at. But certainly I'm aware of the limited development opportunities. It's unfortunate and something that we need to solve as the leadership. So the last one, Itumeleng, I see there's an anonymous employee attendee here who's asking about providing services in stage 1 to stage 6 of EXA.
Yes.
And maybe for the benefit of the attendees, the question is asking whether we provide stage 1 to stage 6 of EXA, and if we do, how do we remain ethical in your business conduct while being profitable? Look, anonymous, I mean, being ethical is a decision you take outside of profitability. I believe it's a departure point where you decide, when you are setting your business up, what kind of business you're going to set up. And once you've determined that in your headlights, and you've decided that this is the business that I'm going to build, and this is everything else, especially around questionable ethical behavior. Once you've decided that this is not me, you stick to that, and that's your guiding pilot light. There will be a lot of opportunities that will pass you by on account that you are not willing to waver on your ethical behavior. You must just get comfortable with that. But say, look, I guess it's not for me. And in my instance, there are a lot of my mates that I started with that are doing fantastic. But they're doing the kind of projects that I would never find myself doing. And I've just made peace that not everything is for me, and that which is for me will find me. As a result, I do, me and my business partners are very selective with the clients that we do business with. There are particular clients that we won't go into business with because we know that their expectations will compromise our ethics, and we just stay away from them. There are enough clients and enough business left in the country after you rule out those that want to compromise your ethics, for you to still be able to do business profitably. I hope that helps.
Then the next question we have is from Saneli Siwe. What is the biggest mistake that delayed registration or growth for young professionals, and how can we avoid them and ensure that our career aligns with EXA codes of conduct and ethics as early as possible?
All right, good question, Saneli Siwe. Look, quick answer. I think not having a registration plan is the biggest problem. There are some people who, in fact, there are a lot of us who find ourselves having worked, and after a while you're like, hi man, I've been working for 5 years. Surely I'm eligible to register now. But there hasn't been a plan in how you've structured this 5 years up to now. And I think that costs a lot of people time that they could register very quickly. Some people are fortunate and they get employed in companies that have structured mentorship programs. that require that their candidate engineers keep a logbook or map out some sort of career path that will give them the necessary exposure in the shortest space of time. And those people that work for those kind of companies are very, very fortunate. But the information is so widely available now that it shouldn't only be those people that work for those companies that are able to map and plan their careers accordingly. The information is available at CESA, and all of these industry bodies share logbooks widely. EXA provides a lot of guidance to their candidate engineers that allows you to say, if I did this work and I selected a supervisor and I selected a mentor and I made sure I met this person every month, this will surely ensure that I get to a stage where I'm registration ready as quickly as possible. So my answer would be that you must plan your registration path. Get yourself a supervisor and a mentor, register them as your supervisor and mentor, set up a schedule where you meet with them, record those meetings, keep a log of everything that you do, sign them off on a monthly basis. You'll register in no time.
Then the next two questions are from Anonymous. How do you deal with someone / a mentee with potential but not so teachable? Then the other question is, which platform offers courses training in specialized engineering fields such as pavement engineering, project management, and estimation, and other examples? So yeah, those are the last two questions that we have.
Okay. Sure. Dealing with someone that is smart but doesn't have a teachable spirit. I think in general, I suppose it's establishing why this person isn't teachable. I always say I can do wonders with a team member or a candidate that has the right attitude. So as long as the reason this person is not teachable is not because they have an attitude problem, you could probably work with them. But I don't think there's much that you can do with someone who's not teachable because of a rotten attitude. And I mean, you say that this person has potential, but I can't think of a reason why one would not be teachable, especially when you have potential. And I assume that there's someone that is willing to develop and enrich you, but you're not teachable. I can only imagine it's an attitude thing, and that's something that needs to be corrected very quickly. I don't know if there's anything that you can do other than bringing it to their attention that this is perhaps what is taking place. Is there something that you can do to correct your attitude to allow yourself to be more teachable? And then the rest is on them. If they are not willing to come to the party, unfortunately, there's not much more you can do for them. On the platforms that one can obtain specialist engineering training, so you ask very specific ones. So pavement engineering, project management, estimating, etc. So there are a number of great training service providers in the engineering discipline. I'm not aware of one that will offer all of these, but specialist training, you can obtain a lot of courses from the CESA School of Consulting Engineering. I'm not just saying this because I'm head of that committee, but we offer, or CESA offers, a lot of courses in a couple of technical engineering disciplines and a lot of soft skills. And then the rest you can obtain from the voluntary bodies in the various disciplines. So if you're a civil engineer and these look like they are civil engineering related specialist engineering fields that you're referring to, then you can obtain a lot of these from CESA. Electrical engineers will obtain them from SAIEE, etc., etc. So there are various institutions in your respective discipline are all now establishing schools or training training entities that then offer the various technical fields. You mentioned pavement engineering specifically. I would go to the SARF website. They have a fantastic set of courses that relate to pavement engineering. Project management is a very wide discipline. As it relates to engineering, you can get it from all of these organizations that I'm talking about. But if you want specialist project management training, you need to visit institutions like PMI, the Project Management Institute, which has a local chapter in South Africa, has membership from training providers, all of the training providers that provide PM in South Africa, and you can get a great list from there as well. I hope that helps.
Thank you. I've noted some few questions in the chat as well, so I'll read them to you, Mrs. Shawa. So the first one is, what advice do you have for someone who had behavioral issues that caused them to make mistakes in their career and cannot seem to get back on the bandwagon, on the wagon? Then the second question is, for people that find themselves in government organizations, how can they navigate without a stigma due to the perspective of the work they find themselves in? Then the third question is, how do you handle young people who are in situations whereby they are led by bad managers in the workspace that become a stumbling block in their career development?
Okay, let's try those. Carol's question. Carol, I mean, I don't have the benefit of asking what exactly you're referring to, but I can only assume you're referring to maybe a career change or a particular career decision that later proved not to have been so great for your professional development. I think as it relates to just moving away from the profession and you do something else and now you want to come back, it's essentially continuing to try until you get the opportunity. I'm aware of a lot of people that will move to public sector, and public sector pays great, by the way. Yeah? That will move to public sector, but once they are there, the amount of exposure that they get eventually starts to feel detrimental to their development, because they don't perhaps work on as many projects as they would like to. They don't perhaps get as varied a range of exposure. And I see one of the questions is speaking about that. And when they eventually want to come back perhaps to a consulting engineering company or a private company, employers look at them as if that experience that they've had in a public organization is less than. And I mean, it's a dynamic in the industry. I think it comes down to how badly you want to re-enter the side of the industry that you now want to come into, and doing what it takes. And in some instances, you might need to take a pay cut. In some instances, you might need to be willing to come back from being a director in government and just come in to be a junior engineer and relearn it. It all just depends on how badly you want it. I mean, there are some people that I've interviewed, that came earning as much as me. And I mean, chish, if we're going to have a discussion, are you willing to take a pay cut? In most instances, some people aren't, because it's not just a decision about getting into the industry. You now have bills that have become as big as these salaries. So my response would be, the short response would be, you do what it takes, even if it means downgrading your position, downgrading your salary, and get in where they will take you and slowly work your way back. I hope that helps, Carol. Ayanda says government organizations, and here Ayanda's not necessarily trying to leave, but they feel like there's stagnation taking place because of the repetitive nature of their work. Ayanda, I'm not sure which public organization you are in. I'm aware that the Department of Public Works has a number of programs where they will place their technical employees in consultant organizations that they have projects with for training purposes. And this is called secondment or workplace placement or something to that effect. One could explore something like that, and hopefully the organization that you're employed with has a similar policy that allows you to take advantage of that. But that's always one avenue one can explore. The second one is to just become familiar with the range of the organization that you're employed with, and actively ask your employer for rotation within the various business units of the public organization that you are working with. You might end up in a unit that is implementing an interesting project, and perhaps get involved in that project. Even request yourself to go and be placed on site. I think those are always avenues that you can explore. I hope that assists. There was a second part to your question. Bad managers. Hey, this one is tough. Look, I end up bad managers are the worst, man. I think in this instance as well, after you've tried every logical thing, obviously you first try by getting to understand this manager. Excuse me. You first start by trying to establish a rapport with this manager. Why am I not getting this guy? After you've explored all of these things, and it's evident that this manager is just terrible at their job, or they just don't like me, your options there too are probably to just try and rotate yourself as quickly as possible, either to another manager around the organization, while being sensitive to this person's feelings, or you leave. But I know that you will not thrive under a bad manager. A bad manager is so stifling, and it is critical that your manager, especially the person that you report directly to, believes and sees your efforts, because only he can communicate that you are doing a good job. And if you're stuck under a bad manager who cannot be rehabilitated, you want to get out of there as quickly as possible. Hopefully it doesn't need that you resign, but maybe you can rotate yourself.
Thank you, Shara. Then we have more questions here. So the next one is from Lerato. For those in the public space, one of the challenges in leadership is being led by non-professionals. At most, these individuals stifle progress and execution of action. How does young individuals continue to foster and improve on their leadership in such environments? Then in the Q&A chat, we also have a question from L. Butelezi. What major challenges do you usually face in engineering entrepreneurship? Then, I think, those are the questions that we have, the two questions. And I think,
Okay, yeah. Thank you, Itumeleng. I see there've been some responses from CESA as well that provides a link to the courses that the School of Consulting Engineering offers. So those looking to see where they could get additional coursework can follow that link and see what is there. Lerato's question is, somewhat similar to the earlier one that we responded to about, being led by non-professionals, and how we handle bad managers. And unfortunately, we've built a culture that non-registration is okay, and unfortunately, it has taken root. I believe our public sector leaders are now correcting this, because we are seeing an increased drive for registration from even public sector professionals. So I think, first of all, that trend is going to correct itself. It shouldn't be that you are a young engineer that is passionate about getting registered and doing the work in line with EXA's mandate, and the people that you report to aren't registered and don't see the importance. I think, first of all, that's going to change. In the time before it does change, I think one can request parallel mentor systems in the organization that one works in. The EXA candidacy system allows for you to have multiple mentors. In other words, if you have selected someone directly above you as your mentor, but there are some skill sets or registration, even in this instance, that they don't possess, you can go and select another mentor elsewhere, even outside of the organization, and establish a mentoring relationship with that person to try and supplement that which you're not obtaining from your supervisor or your mentor in the organization. So that's something that you're looking at. But once again, that is mentorship, at a broad level. It's supervision that is problematic, because supervision is the person that you work directly underneath. And if there's a problem in that young professional and supervisor relationship, you'll seek all external interventions to fix it. Just never accept that. That'll depress you quicker than anything else that is attributed to depression. So, Lerato, I hope that helps. How does an individual continue to foster and improve on their leadership in such an environment? Yeah, so I think the only other thing I would add to that, Lerato, is obviously that leadership training is universal, and you can self-train in leadership principles outside of your supervisor. So your training and your development, that's up to you. That's individual. You can continue to do that. What will remain is then just having the opportunity to exercise it with your boss. Let me leave it there. Back in the Q&A, you said,
Yes.
Buthelezi, major challenges one faces in engineering entrepreneurship. Look, I think the biggest ones are poor payment and cash flow. Engineering entrepreneurs usually run a relatively small business compared to corporate employers, and as such, our cash flow and our ability to run a small, nimble organization depends on being paid when the client has said he's going to pay you. I think our clients across the sector have a reduced sensitivity to the effect of not effecting payment on the day that you have promised, and how that affects a small business. So I think that's probably one of the largest challenges that we face. Me personally, a challenge that I face is balancing the investment in my team with staff rotation. So people must and must always leave when opportunities are better. I'm not one of the people that believe that you must work at one organization for 10 years like they used to teach us when we were first entering the industry. But the amount of interruption that staff rotations has on small business is very disruptive. And when those rotations are taking place, one needs to be very carefully managed that your clients and your projects don't suffer. I think those are two that I can offer. I can obviously give you another 5 more, but I don't think we have the time.
Yeah.
Thank you, Shao. I just have one last question just to close off our Q&A. So this is the last question. And I want this question to look at maybe holistically what we've been discussing in our chat here. So the question is, what are the 3 overlooked management skills you believe that senior managers should have? As it seems in our chat, it seems like most of the YPs feel overlooked in the roles that they are playing in their teams, in the work they are doing. So what 3 skills do you think managers should stop or overlook in how they are managing young professionals to enable them to thrive in their work?
Sure. So I think management skills, so there are a lot of them. The three top ones, as it relates to what we've been talking about, eh?
Yes.
You know, management skills are, you've got interpersonal skills on the one side, yeah. And these are, you know, being able to manage conflict. You know, there are some people that are just terrible at managing conflict. These are things such as motivating employees when, you know, when times are tough, and then just communicating supportively. And I spoke about empathy in my presentation. So I think this communicating supportively or being empathetic to your management team's position, because we're obviously in very different places in our careers, and it's hard for one to always place themselves in the position of your employee before taking this decision. At my level, I'm just thinking it's a deadline. You knew it was needed today. Why is it not done? So I think being able to communicate supportively to still help this person understand why you were wrong and why this cannot happen again, why this is unacceptable, but doing it in a supportive manner that won't leave this person, that won't break your employees. Don't break your employees. So that would be one. So that's on the interpersonal side. On the group side, you know, running a business, a big management skill that I think often gets overlooked is learning how to build effective teams. In other words, you know, no team between 2 organizations is ever going to be able to gel and operate and fire with the same vigor between 2 different people. You as a manager are called on to assess the skill set and the personalities of the team that you're managing and say, this one, I'm going to play them in this field, you know, in this position. This one is not so strong under pressure. Don't give him the tenders. This one. And if you do that correctly, what you do is that you learn to build an effective team, you know, a team that fires on all cylinders. And that calls on being attentive to the various nuances of your team members and fielding them in the right position. I think that often gets overlooked. And then on the last one is on the personal one, because, you know, management is not only about the people that you're managing, it's you as well. So me as a manager, similar to communicating supportively, which is obviously related to how I relate with my people. Me as a person by myself, something called self-awareness, and building that self-awareness is a skill on its own. CESA's BCE program has a whole module on soft skills, and a huge part of it is learning to become self-aware. So this is realizing how my actions, the way that I see myself and my actions affects everybody else. And that's a difficult, it's something that gets taken for granted. I mean, coming up, we all knew IQ and you must be smart, get your IQ up. There's another measure called the emotional quotient, EQ, which a big part of is developing that self-awareness. I think managers overlook that quite a bit. So those would be my three.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Sechaba. I think with that last session of management, I think hopefully sparked something in others. And yeah, hopefully everyone got that advice they need, all their questions answered. And after this leadership and management webinar that we have today, I think everyone should have that in their heads. But just to close off, I'll just go back and just do my closing remarks based on what Sechaba said and the key nuggets I got for myself. And hopefully everyone else can relate or not. Yeah, everyone else can relate. So based on the leadership keys that I learned that leadership is something that everyone mostly strives for. And that's your IQ, going to varsity, seeking the opportunities and getting as much as you can from these opportunities. So being very curious, seeking opportunities, and in that being very decisive to say, this is the opportunity I'm taking and this is why I'm taking it. And in that, making informed decisions as you're taking those opportunities. And in your teams and in your roles that you play, be a star player, be that person that in a team, they're like, no, I can go to this person for this one thing. I know they'll get it done perfectly, no matter how small it is, how big it is, be a star player in it. Then on the other hand, and when it comes to management, after you become a leader, essentially you're going to be part of management. And when you're part of management, I think the key role there, what you're doing is managing people. And as I've mentioned in my last question, this is one thing that people sort of overlook once they step into leadership, because leadership is that title that you have to say you're a director, you're managing a team, all that. But now, how are you managing these people? Are you managing them effectively? Are you doing your best? Are you also making sure that they come out as best as well? Because that's your team at the end of the day. So from the key nuggets I got from Sechaba is that you should always communicate with empathy. And this shows your interpersonal skills to show how you're communicating with people and also being relatable to people, because like he said, that's that one personality trait that sells you, being relatable to people. And if they can come to you with any problem, that shows that you're very approachable, and yeah, people just have that gel with you. And also building an effective team. And with building an effective team, I think this one, if you like soccer, you know that, okay, this player can play very well there, this player high defensive keeper and all that. So I think being very attentive with your team plays a huge role. And yeah, that can make or break your team, because as a team player, as a team member, if my dreams are to be a goalkeeper and I'm not placed as a goalkeeper, that if it's not communicated properly why I'm placed as a goalkeeper and I find myself being a goalkeeper, that can make me frustrated and not perform at my best within the team. So being attentive as a manager or in your managing role, I think those are some of the key things you should look for. And also lastly, self-awareness. Self-awareness allows you as a manager in your role to be accountable for your actions and also be accountable to your team as well with your actions, and foster that healthy relationship with your team. At the end of the day, you're also a person, a human, and mistakes can happen and all that, but being accountable and self-aware is very important to have that sort of eye to also see yourself with how others see you, essentially. So yeah, that's the closing remarks for our leadership and management webinar. And once again, thank you everyone for joining. This was a very wonderful session, and I hope everyone got their golden nuggets. If you didn't, please, those closing remarks, I think they summarize it all. But if you can, yeah, watch the video again. I think this video will be made available on our YouTube channel. Correct me if I'm wrong, Godfrey.
Yes, correct.
Yes, so this video will be made available. So if you want to share it with anyone you know, please do share it. And as YPs, let's continue to learn and grow. And these opportunities are always available to you. Thank you once again. I think I'll let Jen here. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.